And what about the branding part? So how it has evolved in the last 7 or 8, 10 years now?
There are clients who will just come to you, they want to close it off. Number two, we customize each and every quote.
Any lessons you have learned which you want to share? Initially, you made mistakes.
Everything that most photographers don't want to look at. Stay away from clickbait trends. If somebody is doing a FaceTime photo shoot.
So what would be your 3, 4 go-to methods to acquire a client?
Sonam, as a person, I was generally a very well-read, very chilled out person. There was all media lined up in Bandra Bandstand.
Hi Anand, how are you?
Hi Navdeep, how are you?
So Anand, let's start with how long you have been into wedding photography and how did you start it? What's your team size? Where are you based at? Little brief about you.
Okay. I've been doing this for the good part of 7 or 8 years now, professionally. And the first couple of years were just managing it as a side job, if you may. I was managing treasury for an energy company. So it was finance guy by the day and photographer by the weekend. And that routine went on for a couple of years. And one fine day, I just decided to take the leap of faith. I went full time. And now my resume is dented beyond repair. So I'm stuck to this, happily stuck to this rather. I've been doing this with a team of about 20 plus individuals who, much like me, are all self-trained photographers, videographers, editors. So the entire company is powered by YouTube, powered by the internet. We work out of Bombay. We have an office at Nariman Point. But as you can imagine, wedding photography as a job takes us to different places. So we've been fortunate enough to shoot in, I guess now 22 countries and 5 continents and counting until Corona gets over. So this was our, this is a little bit of numbers on us. And yeah, that's a little bit about us.
Okay, so when did you form this company? Like how many years? Like initially, like you said, 2 years was you were managing it alone along with your job. So what was the timeline of all this transformation?
So I think 2013 is when I formed my first company. 2015 is so 2012 I formed my first company. 2013 I formed my second. 2015 I formed my third. So the first 3 years there was a lot of restructuring in terms of the corporate structure, if you can call it that. We're still a small company, but the structure still holds valid, right? So the first 2-3 years were teething years, if you can say so. I've also had a partnership in between, and my partner moved to Goa. So there were things that we learned around on the course. We are a company that offers photography and videography both, which is something or at least I felt that I needed as a groom. So when I was getting married, I was like, nah, I can't hire a photographer and a videographer and then basically settle their arguments in the middle of my failure. I don't want to be doing that. So if I don't want to be doing that, other people also must be coming in that frame of mind. So while we initially started as a photography only company, the idea is that we are trying to deliver wedding memories, right? So why stop there? And also this is indie cinema. So there is no set rules there. You don't have to learn lighting using a ARRI Sun. You're mostly working with available lighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can pick up that skill. So we started the video front with a very indie approach, if you may call it that. We still are very indie. The video team is possibly about a little more than half of the entire team. That is because post-production of video does require a bit more effort than photo. And then we have photographers in the team. We have HR in the team. We have a couple of people who do our production. They just sort of line up everything around the shoot. And then within the team, we have directors who are sort of the experts of their respective trade. They lead the team. They also interface with the clients, understand how we can personalize, customize the photography experience for each and every client. At least that's a sincere effort we make. And then I am there who does everything. I'm the chai wala to the PN to the CEO.
And how many in-house production guys like who do editing and they never move out with you? traveling?
Well, the entire team is in-house, but the number of people who are just core editors, like they are dedicated to that, is maybe 3 or 4. But then again, most people are multitaskers. Like most editors will know how to color, or some editors are also shooting, or some shooters are also editing a little bit. So we encourage that sort of environment because you're all self-taught, right? So everybody picks up whatever they want to.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what about a little bit about gear? And
We've used Canon to start with. We were Nikon for a long time. We are Sony, anything and everything. So we, as a company, have a lot of techie people. People who've come from engineering background. So everybody wants the latest, greatest gear that is out there. We love experimenting. We've shot with Blackmagic, Cinema 6K, I guess. Yeah. So gear is, while we own our own gear entirely, but at the same time, we don't hesitate renting out anything that catches our fancy.
and firstly, what's your favorite camera and a single lens? Let's say if you have to shoot.
So camera, I can't say because I strongly believe most cameras will take care of 95% of the situations that I want to shoot.
True.
I want to shoot low noise. Most cameras at a certain level will take care of that. So on and so forth. Lensing, I do have an answer there. I think 35mm is my favorite lens for like now 6-7 years now. It's become that sticky girlfriend that there are other people, they have their merits, but you just can't get over that first one. 35. So 35 is a great focal length because Indian weddings do tend to get crowded a lot. So it gives you the opportunity to go in the crowd and then go wide at the same time. And you can control the distortion a little bit. So if you are running out of lenses at a quick portrait session, you can still sort of get away with shooting with a 35.
So tell me, when you started out, as a single person, then into a team, now looking back, what do you feel, what were your initial mistakes or lessons you have learned, which you might want to pass on to other photographers who are starting out? These are the things you shouldn't be doing. Like any lessons you have learned, which you want to share. Initially, you made mistakes.
One is innovation, customer relationship, and third is brand value or marketing or branding, whatever you call it. So innovation, customer relationship, and branding.
Okay.
Now, most beginners, I feel, only focuses at innovation. They'll click the best pictures out there. They'll spend a lot of time, come up with some beautiful art, but the customer relation quotient is missing. The deadlines are all over the place. The way they dress, or the way one dresses, the simple WhatsApp text to an email, those are things that go on to make a good customer relationship. And of course, branding and marketing. This is digital age, so discovery is quite fast, which means your competitors can also be discovered very fast. Hence, you need to have a certain minimum level of branding and marketing activity going on at whichever level you are. You just cannot afford to, or you cannot get into the phase where you're like, oh, well, my product will speak for itself. I wish photographs had a mouth. Then they would have done a great job at marketing, but unfortunately you have to do that for them.
Correct. So when you started out, so these things were there, but not at the level you wanted to, or you were not aware of, or how the things have changed in terms of these three things from 2013 to 2020?
That's a great question. So I can tell you 2011 is when I got married. And when I went out to search for wedding photographers for my own wedding, branding or marketing was so low. I could find like 10 photographers who were maintaining their websites well. And I'd just come back from US and I was used to seeing all things, very nice, like websites and very good contact us pages and good correspondence. And here I was, I left emails to a few of them. I got reply after 20 days. So I think that was like, that was an immediate moment that, okay, if ever I get into this, that is one thing I'm going to fill up, that one gap of communication or marketing. So that was one. In terms of innovation, 2012, 13, fortunately, I think were the years where the innovation curve was just taking off. We had Canon 5D Mark III that was launched, Mark II and Mark III were launched, and suddenly this whole era of I can own a DSLR at a reasonable price. So fortunately, that era was there, and now it's gone to the next level where, it's not just one company innovating on one product every year. It's like phone market. Every 6 months, you will hear of some cutting edge innovation happening. So technology has changed in a good way. Presentability slash marketing slash brand awareness has changed in a good way. You'll be surprised. I still feel that customer relationship has not changed at all. I still see so many people or so many, youngsters making the same mistake that, I'll just give my client some extra images and why bother telling him on, it's a typical Indian attitude where in a meeting that is decided at 10 o'clock, you will hear somebody message at 10:05 running late. No, you were running late at 9:30. You're now informing that you are running late. So, so that's a classic mistake. A lot of photographers also do. I see people who will just over deliver after a timeline, assuming that it'll compensate. Unfortunately, it doesn't sometimes, and you can also just say before the timeline that, listen, I'm going to exceed my timeline. Can I do that? Mm-hmm. So these little professional tricks out of the book can still go a long way. They will, I think. We will converge to Western standards there.
Mm-hmm. And what about the branding part? So how it has evolved in the last 7, 8, 10 years now?
It has, you've been a participant of the industry for a long time. So I think you can throw more light, but just a simple thing, and no offense against any of our clients, but in general, the way clients used to look at wedding photographers, say in 2012 or 13 versus now, has drastically changed. I have seen days where we are asked to travel not by air, by train. We've been requested to eat not at the same buffet as the guest. We've been given super substandard hotels. But again, I don't blame the clients because they were possibly hiring a photographer, say 20 years after, one generation after. So their wedding photographer, now my daughter's wedding photographer. So for them to understand this 20-year gaps takes a while. And we as a community have done exceedingly well in the service, the value, the art that we have provided. The clients have quickly come to the pace that, fair enough, you guys actually do substantial work for my wedding. So let me reciprocate that in my behavior. So that's a big leap, I think. Very big leap. Branding now means so many things, like what you look like. That's a part of your branding. That's a part of your physical presence. How your studios are like. I see so many brilliant workspaces that people have made. How they're presenting their content to the client. How they're packaging their content to the client. Earlier it used to be, I've seen albums come in like plastic bags. Just look at album packaging. They look like a lot of effort has gone into making them. So presentation has largely improved. Your communication, I guess, is also a big part of the branding, as I mentioned. Mm-hmm. You just don't communicate on SMSs or WhatsApp anymore with clients. It's contracts and very formal communication. People have client relationship managers. So that concept didn't exist in 2013. There was no concept of a client relationship manager. And in terms of branding, we've seen some of the photographers actually evolve as their own personal brand. I think 2012-13, there only used to be Raja and Badal Jain, which had a status, that, oh, these guys are, like celebrities of their own space, if I can use that word. Mm-hmm. But you've seen many more come in these years, which is great because that recognition is coming from the clients. It's not something that you just go around proclaim that I am a celebrity photographer. Somebody has to say it for you, and a lot of people.
Okay, so wedding photography, obviously it's an art, it's a business. So what's your view of balancing out the creativity as the business and the business aspect of it? Like, what are your views on that?
Fortunately, I'm getting to balance the business aspect of it more now compared to concentrating on the creative aspect, which doesn't mean I'm not concentrating on the creative, but I can now afford to spend more of my time in streamlining the business, which which is what every wedding photographer needs to do on some sort of a schedule basis. What I mean by that is, say on a fortnightly basis or on a monthly basis, you're looking at your market presence, you're looking at your what kind of pricing you're maintaining, your taxation, everything that most photographers don't want to look at. Not be need basis. Oh, it's March 31st. Let me figure out how taxes work. It can't be that. Or, oh, I just saw someone else's code template. Oh, this looks wonderful. I'm doing everything wrong. Let me just redo mine right from the start. So, though, if you take out few scheduled time slots every now and then, that will help you concentrate on the business side. The art side of it, fortunately, Navdeep, I feel most people who choose to become photographers, they have a reason. It's again like that first love, right? I've come across people who wanted to shoot music concerts. Their love was just being in that concert, capturing that energy. Somebody wanted to shoot fashion, weddings, whatever it is. So anytime you feel you're going away from that art quotient, the tipping point is becoming business, where you feel you're becoming more businessman than the artist. My suggestion would be, please just go back and do whatever got you into photography the first, or at least remember that. And it will just lighten the mood right there and then. It will be like remembering your first love.
So how should one decide about the pricing? Let's say when I started or you started in 2011, the pricing was very different. You created a company and then the pricing changed. Obviously, your clientele has changed. So how does one who is starting out needs to understand his pricing and grow with in the business? Uh,
So if you know that your client is not going around and asking 20 other people, there are clients who do that. There are clients who will just come to you. They want to close it off. At that point, you got to be smart about it and figure what is the maxima of this client's affordability. Client is willingly giving it to you. You're not forcing someone. You're not duping someone. You're being
Correct.
smart about it, right? So that is one thing. Understand what sort of information does the client have. Now, if the client says that he has a lot of information, then you've got to figure your relative pricing. And to answer the second part of your question, how do I take my relative pricing from 50 rupees to 500 rupees? I'm charging 500 while relatively others are charging even 50 rupees. How am I making that possible? That for me is again coming because of those three spheres. Either I'm innovating a lot, which
Yes.
competitor isn't, or I'm a brand value which is so big that while LV also makes a branded luxury bag and a Burberry also makes a luxury bag, an LV bag costs 2x and a Hermes bag will cost 4x of a Burberry bag. So within the same space, can I have my brand value escalated to the highest level? And the third thing would be customer relationship. People still buy a Maruti car while a Hyundai is available. Same spec, same everything. Because they feel, no, yeah, Maruti has this customer relationship and a lot of service centers and things like that. And, whatever goes
Mhm.
into it. So these are three factors. You need to differentiate consistently on all three. A mistake that people will do is they will only differentiate on the innovation factor and assume the rest should be taken care of. Or worse still, they'll only differentiate on the brand factor. They'll go around, call themselves a brand. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
How
I
they
think
should do it.
this is a very valuable and a very deep advice because there are no shortcuts from going from 50 to 500 rupees, right? The three things you
Yeah.
have mentioned, you just can't ignore them or take them lightly at any stage of your any career.
Yeah. You can't. You can't.
Yeah. Let's talk something lighter. So, how do you choose your team members? Let's say you are 20 right now. You want to go ahead and want to be 25 or 30 people, right? So, how do you select a team member in your team?
So we are both at a certain age in our life where we have our fixed friend circles, right? But every once in a while there would be a new friend that will come in the friend circle, and there would be some reasons why you will choose that friend. You would not choose a friend because, say, he's an IITian and he's from Ahmedabad and he's has the best job in the world. You don't choose friends basis on that, right? So that's the same way we choose our team. We don't choose them because they have a great portfolio. I mean, there's so many people I am not able to extend an offer or job offer at our company, even if they have a stellar portfolio, because somewhere I cannot see them as a friend. I don't see them fitting into the team in that sense. These are our team spends possibly 50% of our yearly time. You know, if there are 84,000 hours in the year or some whatever like that, you know, we spend more than 50% together. We are traveling together. We bunk in the same rooms together. We take holidays together. So you need to be thoroughly compatible on a personal level. Again, also, I feel that you can train someone to become a good artist. Honestly, I don't think ours is an art where you require some God gift to be a good photographer. I don't think so. You can train. Or rather, it's very difficult to train someone to change their personality to sort of befriend other people. So we choose the easy route. We choose to train people who may or may not be that good at their art, but those are people definitely we feel like friends from day one. So it's very, very easy then. It's, you know, go to the office and say hi, hello to them.
So being a senior, now I need your advice for upcoming photographers or photographers who have very less experience. So what would be your 3, 4 go-to methods to acquire a client?
We have gone through the phase where we thought, you know, tricks in the bag are the salvation sources. You know, let's just get our SEO right, so that anytime somebody searches top wedding photographer India, and if my name shows up, that is it. I've hit the jackpot. I won the World Cup. And to be honest, by the way, I actually managed to crack that. There was a 6-month stretch I remember in 2014 where my SEO ranking was in the top 3, which is very difficult to get. Stay away from clickbait trends. You know, if somebody is doing a FaceTime photo shoot, and you look at that shoot and you go, nah, it looks very normal. You know, it just looks like a momentary trend which somebody is trying to capitalize on. Stay away from it. Don't put your energy. You have only 24 hours in the day. In photography world, artists especially are very vulnerable. We'll see someone else's work and we'll be like, mine's gone case. Like, I'm so bad. How am I even a photographer if this person is shooting? You can draw inspiration. And the third thing would be that you have to differentiate, or you have to find your calling in at least one space. For example, Sabyasachi today, if it comes to a red or a tone of red wedding lehenga, he may not be the best men's designer. He may not be the best jewelry designer. He may not be the best non-red wedding lehenga designer. But when it comes to red, guy has found his place. Same way, we as photographers need to have at least one thing. It could be fine art portraits. That could be your thing. Shoot everything else, but when it comes to fine art portraits, these guys are the best. It could be innovation in tech. If it comes to tech concepts, these guys are the best. So you need to find one thing. Usually for most businesses, no, one thing is enough, by the way. You don't need to go very far beyond one thing to become an expert in one thing. Takes a lot of time and effort.
Okay, so I have a quick question over here. So I think this is a part of branding, right? I might be very good at taking bridal portraits, right? But if I don't know how to market myself,
Right.
I would be lacking behind. So I need to
Right.
understand, how to market myself and how to get new clients on the consistent basis. Because a lot of photographers are very good in marketing, like they could do an average, above average work and they could market themselves as, and there are a lot of photographers who are struggling, not because their art is struggling or their photography is not up to the par. It's just that they are not able to market themselves properly. Like I gave an example, a person felt that I could, if I go to X number of wedding planning websites, I could just get a lot of clients. So the end result was he not even got a single conversion.
So when it comes to a lot of these planning websites, one needs to be careful about what you're choosing and if they are really promoting your work or not. However, I feel that Instagram uh, the algo works in a way that it rewards unique work. I'll give you an example. I'm following this artist called Cash Bunny, Cache, like memory cache. This is Corona time, so this. She's a VFX artist based out of Hollywood, and she was on maybe some 20,000 followers like 20, 30 days ago. And I found her work just going through one of another, like a film light or some filmmaking Instagram account, which basically just only retweets and reshares other artists' work.
Mm.
And I found her work to be very unique, like very, very innovative. Today, she is at 140,000 today in a matter of 25 days. And how did that happen? Once one website picked up the work, then there was another website, another website, and she just started going viral. And the work was actually so good, it was worthy of going viral. So beyond a point, your work will market itself. Your clients will just go gaga about it. The websites will go gaga about it. So your work has to be of a very, very high standard now to break that thrust barrier. Just hang in there. The thrust barrier will be broken. And once it's broken, you won't have to sort of go around acquiring clients. Clients would come to you. And to be honest, in the long run, that's a very good strategy. Otherwise, you'll just keep spending your time trying to think of ways on how you can sort of outsmart your competition and acquire a client. And it doesn't work out very well. It takes away a lot of energy to an area which deserves less energy.
So when you said, you sit back in a month or maybe in 2 months and you look at your, where the branding is going, where the marketing is going, how creatively you guys are working. So what is your process of analyzing your own things?
Well, this is a very heavy question. I'm still away from that day of the month, so I haven't given it a thought. Uh, we so I'm a finance guy, so I have my parameters set. I monitor my cash flow. I monitor my receivables. Um, I mean, it's going to become a mini, what do you say, finance lesson, but I monitor those two things. What's the other thing that we do?
So marketing.
Marketing is an ongoing activity. To be honest, we always keep our eyes and ear open on how we can market ourselves on a new avenue. But
Do you,
fortunately, there's a team dedicated to that. I don't take out a day in the month to do it. There's a team which solely focuses on how to get our work across.
in an like can you quote any example, like this is what you observed, you guys, and then you made a change and then you saw some results, maybe that would be
Oh,
more easier to
cash
convey.
flows. Cash flow is one of the big ones. You know, the account receivable uh, in photography industry. Uh, most photographers work on very heavy tail end payments, which would mean that, say, they have to collect sometimes as high as 50% balance on delivery of the album. Client number one owes you 10 rupees, and there are 10 such clients. So there there is a 100 rupee receivable, which is getting received a year on an average after the wedding, because clients take sometimes their own sweet time to come back on the albums and things like that. So that 100 rupees that should have been with you on January 1st of the year is coming to you on December 31st of the year. If that money had come and you had put it in stock market, gold, whatever it is, you could have earned 8-10% out of it, right? On a good year. That means you have lost about 8 to 10 rupees. Now, if your total business, the total revenue of out of those 10 clients was 200 rupees, 100 was paid, 100 was receivable. You have lost 8 rupees, right? Which means you've lost about 5-6% worth of business. If you were doing 20 weddings, you'll have to do 22 weddings or 21 weddings. If you were doing 40 weddings, you'll have to do 42 weddings just to cover up for your receivables. That's a lot. Like 5, 8, 10% receivables in a given year is a lot of money stuck in the system. So please, don't think of it as, oh, I will get that money. You are losing interest value on that capital every time you don't collect it.
So what's your recommendation or your own strategy to deal with this? Like,
You got to keep pushing the clients to finish work. You got to have a solid contract in place that covers for such delay clauses. For example, if you the client doesn't come back to us with the changes, we will consider them final after XYZ days. And you've got to have some sort of a reminder system. There are a lot of apps available which will send you auto reminders that such and such thing is pending. A simple to-do app will do the job, to be honest.
Can you take us through your workflow process, like pre-booking and post-booking? How you guys handle everything?
All of us are very social people in that sense in the team. So we'll request for a phone call. We'll speak to them. We'll get to know them. Uh, Sometimes good things come out of that. We're able to suggest them ideas, or we're able to hear their ideas. We want to talk to them on phone calls. That's number one. Number two, we customize each and every quote for every inquiry. It's a painful task because clients have very, very specific requirements. It takes a lot of time to prepare quotations. We do that. Once the thing is locked, uh, by then we'd either met them once or twice already, or if you're talking on phone, we try to arrange a meeting wherever they are, wherever we are, at least online. And then it's like a lengthy discussion on what's their story, what do they want out of wedding picture. Sometimes we end up suggesting things that are implemented at a wedding. Then closer to the wedding date, we are still in touch. We try and do a pre-wedding shoot if possible. It gives us a great window to get to know them, opportunity to get to know them. Once the shoot is done, during the shoot, we try and speak to the key stakeholders. We don't shy away from talking to the mums and the dads and the chachas and the chachis in the family, because it's also a deliverable for them. And once the thing is done, we try our level best to stay in touch, to explain to them what we are doing, when can they expect their pictures, if there is a delay, why there is a delay. And last thing, we take feedbacks. We take the harsher feedbacks more seriously. Like, we actually go out sometimes. The client has expressed some sort of a shortcoming in our work, which is lesser cases, but even if they did, we are completely honest. We go out, we ask them, tell us where we went wrong, try to fix it, or at least make a lesson out of it and better ourselves.
So one last question about Sonam Kapoor wedding. So tell us, what can you tell us about that? Like, it's you can't talk about it, or is it okay?
Oh, I can talk about it now, I guess. In fact, today morning, Facebook memory thing showed up on my Facebook feed, and May 9th, which is today, technically the reception concluded on May 9th at 4 a.m. in the morning. At least for me, it concluded at 4 a.m. So I was, but I was just on my feet I had woken up that morning at 6:15 or something like that. So it had been a 22-hour day. So I called it a day. And that is exactly how that wedding was. It was a 22-hour day. Started at 6 in the morning. There was Anand Karaj, which is an early morning ceremony, Sikh ceremony. So you got to be like right there. You got to be hitting the fourth gear at 9 in the morning. It's very difficult when you've had a long evening before that. And by the time the wedding was done, I still remember I was at the venue where the wedding was done, and there was all media lined up in Bandra bandstand. And my only goal or directive at that time was, I have to give a media release picture before anybody in the world releases a picture of her in that red dress. Because, it has to be a professional's picture coming out first. And there were like 200 people with their cell phones there clicking. And my directive was, look, if XYZ person has updated it before you, you're done. You're gone. So race against time, mission impossible. I got down, I was editing full force, and it was a very eventful day. But Sonam as a person, I was, I wasn't expecting her to be the kind of bride chilla that she is. She's generally a very well-read, very chilled out person. So she was a delight to work with. No demands. No demands except for I don't want to give video sound bites. I face the camera for a living. I don't want to be doing that. for my wedding film. Fair enough. Other than that, such a cooperative bride. Took the time out. Very happy person also in general on the wedding day. Feel like I should get the opportunity someday to share the behind the scenes, but I wish more weddings are like that.
So you were not contract bound to not share the pictures, or she was pretty much okay, even if you release the
There
pictures.
was, I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay, so what was your team size shooting a wedding?
In Sonams,
Yeah.
Sonams, we were like 6 people, I think.
So this team was designed by you, or it was a part of the requirement to have a smaller team. So like, what was actually the scenario?
It was an Anand Karaj happening at home.
Mm-hmm.
So more than 6 would start to look like a crowd. That was one thing I knew. There was no requirement set from their end. We could have brought in 20 people easily, but that would have just made our process very complicated for ourselves. Um, and we went in just with the right size team. Even in the party, you don't want people disturbed. Be it Sonam or be it any other client, you don't want to disturb them with the, because when you're clicking in a banquet which is dimly lit, you're bound to use flash. I mean, you've seen the videos of that evening, and it was
Mm.
dimly lit. That was the whole vibe. So we went in with a smaller team and worked out
And
just
you
fine, actually.
and you were the only team. There were no other teams shooting the wedding or any other.
No, no, we were the only
So
team.
that also makes the job easier, as well as the pictures turn out better, because if there are more than one team shooting over there, even if let's say you are
Yeah,
shooting 5 6 people and there is another team with 5 6 people, you end up with 12 15 people still shooting a wedding.
yeah. Then you need to be like super organized, like Akash and Shloka's wedding. We had multiple teams shooting, which were hired from like different parties. But fortunately, all the teams, got down and decided to the T where our spots will be when the fairas are going on and things like that. So then that level of planning is required. Then you can't just show up at the venue and wing it. So
Hmm.
Akash and Shloka's wedding it's a case study on its own.
Yeah, because I guess their wedding was shoot by multiple teams, and then
Yeah,
it was more of a the planning would be required to shoot with multiple.
immense amount of planning,
Yeah.
immense amount of planning, and I can assure you, all the teams, we've got great results, all of us. So if that's why I'm saying it's a case study, that how can multiple agencies doing the same work come together and still produce good result. um, I mean, to just share a simple thought with you, it the Faira Mandap is one place where a photographer is usually one of the only ones, except for the Pandit, who's in the mandap.
Uh-huh.
Photographer is allowed at the mandap. There's no question about that. But then this was the only weddings so till date where we consciously decided we will not be within 40 feet radius of the mandap. 40 feet is a big distance. 40 feet immediately meant we needed to figure out our position, we need to figure out our angles,
Hmm.
and we need to figure out our lensing. So I remember there was a 600 there were lots of 400 MMs. I think I somewhere remember an 800 also. I think there was an 800 somewhere.
So approximately how many people were shooting?
I
All
think
the teams included.
so. Reliance had their own team, and then there were 2 or 3 other teams, and total was, there must have been around, in that wedding venue, 150 cameras live. I mean, I count a camera as a camera, because if you are in some other camera's field of view,
Hmm.
then that means that you need to communicate with that cameraman and plan out both things. So yeah, 150 odd cameras.
So how did you landed up Sonam's wedding? So like how did it all started?
Again, this is one of those things I will not be able to comment on, but uh, we were picked by someone in the family, and we were picked for the work. There was a thorough sort of viewing session, after which decisions were made.
Yeah. I mean, obviously not into the details, but like you were recommended from The Kapoor's family, someone from the Kapoor's friend circle or the
I that would be tough to answer. I think now I have to revisit my NDA. But we were in touch with the Kapoors because they are from Bombay. The Anands are from the Ahujas are from Delhi.
family.
So we were in touch with the Kapoors, but yeah, we went. It was a long process of coming on board.
Okay. So a lot of because the reason why I'm asking this question is a lot of people make assumptions and presumptions. Okay, how can I land a celebrity wedding? It really doesn't matter what they have been
uh,
shooting. Their first thought is, how can I land a celebrity wedding? And they don't realize that these are the most difficult weddings to shoot as well as to deliver.
yeah, that's what I said. When you use the term client acquisition, that's again one of the things you can only do so much to acquire a client. It would be very, very nice if you can figure out a way how the client finds you. Give the client a reason to pick you rather than chase the client into picking you. It's in Sonam's case, I can definitely tell you that we didn't spend days and hours and weeks, just trying to get into their books. It happened organically. The actual fight is getting from 0 to 1, not 1 to 10. And
Hmm.
0 to 1 takes time. Unfortunately, there's no shortcut. If there was, somebody would have exploited that shortcut.
How a photographer should network with other photographers and with other people so that it helps him grow in his business, whether it's art or the business side.
So on the art side, uh, I don't think that is hidden that you can just literally ping any photographer in the world. I mean, Roger Deakins, for that matter, I understand, started taking some live sessions right now, 1 or 2 days ago. Roger Deakins,
Mhm.
the guy in international film cinematography,
Mm.
is right now available for free on Instagram Live.
Mm.
So that takes care of the reaching out for the intent of learning purpose. There is enough information, free information out there.
Mm.
Reaching out to other photographers for business, according to me, doesn't make sense. I cannot give business to some other photographer and vice versa.
Mm.
Reaching out to clients for business is an activity which I've heard of 1 or 2 of those models where young photographers like 25, 26, 27-year olds are hanging out with at venues like clubs or party areas or restaurants where they find clients of similar age group. But then again, the window of that kind of networking is also 1 or 2 or 3 years. After a while, all those people will get married and you will be too old to network with them. Work cannot be networked. You cannot show up even at a networking event and tell an event planner or tell a client that, hey, listen, while we are just before dinner, while we have those 10 minutes, why don't I show you these photos on my iPad? Maybe we can be friends. Networking doesn't work that way. Uh, Go to a networking event, you make your friends, you come back, it's okay. So you don't expect business from it. And honestly, I don't think much of my business comes out of networking from any of these events.
But these
Uh,
event management companies or wedding planners, does this networking doesn't help you get into the business or grow your
so the
business?
good wedding planners are also online. They are actively looking, or their team is actively looking through people who are doing good work. They have a database. They maintain that.
Mm.
They keep updating that database.
Mm-hmm.
That I can tell you for sure. So right now, as you and I speak, some wedding planner in India is evaluating your website and saying, okay, I don't know him, but I will reach out to him and I will recommend him if everything goes okay.
Mm. That's a
So
good point.
right. So you don't need to sort of reaffirm for that from that person, let me figure out where that person lives or sits or which conferences he attends, and let me just somehow get to go introduce myself to him. It sounds too needy, too pushy. Uh, you don't need to do that, to be honest. He's anyways doing it for you.
Mm. So I guess what you're trying to say is that do the good work, maintain your website properly, professionally, your maybe your social media handles as well. but you are not recommending these conferences where a lot of photographer community or wedding community hangs out. They do you don't feel that sort of a networking helps?
No. I'll tell you what happens in these conferences. Partying happens in these conferences, and I'll tell you why partying happens, because you get to meet friends from from the industry, from the
That's
wedding industry,
mm,
outside of professional setup. So that's a reason to celebrate.
mm.
That's not a reason to network. That's a reason to just celebrate. So that's that's the long and short of these conferences.
So before we leave, Anand, why don't you share your website, your social media handles? I'll put it in the description. Just share it with us.
Okay, this is the good part. I'm marketing. My team tells me I must market myself. Everybody who's hearing this, so big thanks to the Navdeep Soni show to bring me on board for this. Big thanks to Navdeep for taking the effort out, because it is painstaking work getting all this together, and I know that. Our website is reelsandframes.in. The and is A-N-D, REELSANDFRAMES. Reelsandframes.in is website. Instagram is Reels and Frames. Twitter is same, Reels and Frames. Please write to us anytime if you have any personal questions. Please do mention that this was from the Navdeep Soni show, and I'd be super happy to answer them.
Awesome, awesome. And I can assure everyone who is listening and watching this, he's definitely going to respond to you. So go ahead, put in your queries in the comments or contact him directly, and he'll get back to you. So, okay, Anand, so let's wind this up. Thank you so much for your time. And in such a short notice, you were available. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Navdeep. Thanks. You have a good one.
Yeah. Bye bye.